आपको याद है हमारे देश में आखिरी बार पॉपुलेशन सेंसस कब हुआ था? या फिर लास्ट हाउस होल्ड कंजम्पशन सर्वे कब हुआ था? नहीं? ओके, देन लेट मी आस्क यू दिस. How many people in India are currently living below the poverty line? Or how many Indians actually lost their lives during the COVID-19 pandemic? From hate crimes, mob lynchings, deaths by suicide to economic indicators, GDP or jobs, the fact is that either the government hasn't collected data for so long that it is absent, or there is indeed no data, or sometimes it is calculated in a way which doesn't really align with global standards. Other times the government rejects global findings and often it also gatekeeps data. In fact, CIC ने कितनी RTI applications को no data कहकर refuse करा, इस पर भी कोई data नहीं है. The question is, why is the Modi government not maintaining key data sets? Senior Congress leaders have often taunted Modi's NDA government to mean no data available. वो कहते हैं ना, what can't be measured can always be denied. But no data doesn't mean no crisis. Stick around and we'll unpack it for you one by one. You must have read that recently India surpassed Japan to become the fourth largest economy in the world. But what if I were to tell you that our $4 trillion economy is making most of its internal policy decisions based only on approximations? That its welfare schemes, which are funded by the taxpayers' money, are relying on guesswork and stale data. Why? Because it will have been more than 15 years when India gets its updated population census only in 2027. A population census is the backbone of governance. It gives the door-to-door count of age, gender, and from this year on, the caste of its citizens. It tells the government about housing, urbanization, migration, and the workforce structure. It points at areas where welfare schemes should be targeted, how assembly and parliamentary seats should be delimited, and how much money should the states and local bodies be allocated.
I would say the biggest failure in India's data collection is the absence of the census. The census is not a survey, it is a complete house-to-house collection of data, right? Unlike just taking 100 and then projecting, you're supposed to look at everything, right? And without that, we can't even estimate what the inflation is, because the census actually collects what people spend on, what is the expenditure, right? It works out patterns. Without that, how do we know?
Another such critical data set is the Consumer Expenditure Survey, which informs the government about how people live, what they eat, how they earn and spend. This survey was conducted once every 5 years until 2011. But then something changed. The last survey, which was conducted for 2017-18 and published in 2019, was junked by the government citing data quality issues. In 2022, the government replaced the survey with a new one. The first Household Consumption Expenditure Survey was conducted for the year 2022-23 and released in 2024. So for 10 whole years, the Modi government had no official up-to-date household consumption or poverty data set, even as it continued to dole out scheme after welfare scheme for the country's poor. This prolonged vacuum includes the pandemic years from 2020 to 2022, when such a survey was needed the most.
A very critical period where you want to ensure that the most vulnerable communities get the welfare that the government is kind of giving, but there is no data.
Yeah, I think the data is available, and that is the election results. Very clearly, if the poor, right, everywhere have voted for the existing government, then you know it has reached them. We do know that when 10,000 rupees was given in Bihar, we see what the result. I think that there is a certain degree of success in targeting and giving subsidies to people, which shows up in the support for the existing governments in various places. And when it fails, governments are thrown out. Surveys are taking place. It's just that it's not public. Data is being collected. Who all have access to that data? That is the bigger question.
And since we were talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, it would be fair to say that along with the day-to-day functioning of the country, all of the corresponding data was also locked down by the Modi government. When the government was asked in Parliament about the number of migrant workers who died in transit while walking home thousands of kilometers as India was thrown into a lockdown, it said, no data. The number of health workers, police personnel, sanitation workers who contracted COVID and died in the line of duty, it said, no data. The number of MSMEs which shut down during the pandemic, no data. COVID-19 deaths due to shortage of oxygen, no data. And now, the you should be shocked but not surprised moment. As per the government's own data on deaths and births, which it quietly released in May last year when India was in a warlike situation with Pakistan, there were nearly 20 lakh more COVID deaths in India in 2021. That's 20 lakh lives simply written off. And since we spoke of undercounting, let's also talk about overestimating, particularly India's GDP growth. Months after he took charge as the Prime Minister, Modi's government changed the base year as well as the methodology for computing India's real GDP. The immediate result was higher GDP estimates and no means to compare the growth data with the UPA years. In fact, Arvind Subramanian, who was the chief economic advisor then, argued that the change in methodology for computing GDP had overestimated India's growth by at least 2.5 percentage points. And recently, IMF gave India a C grade, the second lowest possible on its financial data quality and national account statistics. Why? IMF pointed out that India is still using 2011-12 as the base year for estimating real GDP even after a decade when the structure of the economy has changed substantially, and that methodological shortcomings are hampering economists and policymakers from getting an accurate and timely picture of the Indian economy.
No, we don't have an outdated, we have an updated system. That system is faulty. We have followed what IMF has told us to follow, which is wrong. We shouldn't have. The old system, broadly, of doing GDP was to say, okay, if my country produced 100 shirts, right? Each one cost 100 rupees. That makes it 1 lakh was the total output, right? In shirts, correct? 1 lakh rupees was the total output in shirts in year one, right? Next year, the number of shirts fell to 800, right? But the price went up to 150, okay? Now, the output appears to be 1,20,000, 20% growth. But in real terms, it has fallen, right, by 20%. It's not real output which is being calculated anymore. In some places it is, but in a lot of places it is not. This is a basic problem in calculation. So you might say the GDP has grown by 8%. For whom? I think this is the fundamental thing to remember. The government is not fudging data. It is collecting it based on the systems that exist. And that system is wrong. Because if profits rise very highly, GDP will go up. But that profit is neither being spent on investment, nor is it being given to you and me as salaries and wages. Yes, it has grown for the poorest people. So the fact that there's been a return to villages suggests that life in villages is slightly better for the poorest people than it is by working 16 hours or 12 hours a day, taking bricks up and down construction sites, right? Okay, so what I'm saying is that all data, private, public, shows that the poorest are doing better. But doing better in what way? Subsistence existence is people like you and me who have not done well. Definitely since 2019, the professional middle class is badly affected. Salaries haven't increased. There's inflation. So therefore, I'm saying that GDP is growing. We are the only consumers. Where is it growing?
Although Nirmala Sitharaman has said that she is going to update the base year in February 2026, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Coming back to data sets where prolonged delay hits us where it hurts most. NCRB's Crime in India report, which is expected to provide a comprehensive set of crime data, has faced repeated delays. because the report for 2023 was published only in 2025. So there is not only a complete void in tracking changing crime trends, but also any action, including policy reforms or crime prevention or allocation of police resources, is retrospective instead of being proactive. For instance, cybercrime cases rose by over 30% in India in 2023, which we have realized only in 2025. The question is, have the number of cybercrime police stations grown accordingly? Have cyber cells been given enough resources to monitor the shift in the nature of cybercrimes and prevent them? Not only that, NCRB's crime data misses critical context on the underlying reasons of a particular crime, such as poverty, unemployment, or even polarization. Which is why when the Union Home Ministry was asked about the number of mob lynchings and hate crimes against religious minorities between 2017 and 2022, it told the Parliament no separate data was maintained on these crimes. Besides, mob lynching was not even defined as a crime then. It said that though NCRB collected this data in 2017, it was found to be unreliable and the exercise was discontinued. And though mob lynching is now defined in India's new criminal law BNS, there is still no data on whether such crimes increased or decreased in the last 10 years. And since we spoke of crimes that do take place but the government claims they are not defined as such, remember when students pointed out large-scale irregularities including paper leaks in the most coveted medical entrance exam NEET? It had led to country-wide protests. But when the Education Ministry was recently asked about data on paper leaks in the exam it conducts, it said that there is no data. There is also no data on how many students belonging to marginalized communities face racism and harassment at central universities and educational institutions. Further, there is no data on medical interns at government hospitals who died by suicide, or the number of RTI activists who have been killed in the last 10 years. It's one thing not to maintain data, it's another to actively control access to whatever little exists. For instance, when Rahul Gandhi alleged large-scale voter fraud including fake, duplicate or bulk registered voters in Karnataka and Haryana and demanded
electronic voter data, not only of current election, but of the last 10-15 years, CCTV footage.
What did the Election Commission do? It dismissed everything, including its own accountability, and saving the biggest smokescreen for the last. Delhi's AQI data. Till now, we have seen that critical data was missing or delayed, but this is a classic example of how the government manipulates data throughout, starting from data collection, then calculation, then standardization, and even assertion. The point is, Delhi's PM 2.5 concentration is 18 times more than WHO's prescribed limit. No matter what, women, children, elderly in India's capital city are exposed to poisonous air 3 months every year. And the cherry on the cake? The government recently told Parliament that it did not have any conclusive data which establishes a connection between worsening AQI and increasing lung diseases. This is when a Lancet study attributed millions of deaths in India due to air pollution since 2021. From COVID deaths due to oxygen shortage in 2020 to respiratory deaths due to air pollution in 2025, PM Modi has completed another 5 years of governing the world's largest democracy without addressing press conferences or publishing critical data, even as the common citizen continues to be on the ventilator. But if granular and timely data is essential for better governance, then who is benefiting from the government's data denial? We at the Quint will continue to ask the tough questions and hold the authorities accountable. Please support us by becoming a member.